Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Off and running, hour number 2, Hunt Palmer Show. Musso filling in for Hunt today. Taylor Sharp, Cassie Spazzali along for the ride, and glad you are as well. Pretty baseball heavy as LSU and Texas A&M, their series, pivotal series for both squads, nears. With that, we'll actually go out to College Station right now. Talk with Richard Zane, covers the Aggies for Tex Ags on Twitter, X at Richard Zane32. Richard, we appreciate the time, man. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are y'all? And more importantly, how is the weather in Baton Rouge? Because I keep poking my head out here in Aggieland. No rain yet, but the forecast kind of makes me feel like we might not get a game in this evening.
I'm glad you led there. That's where I was going to lead. The weather in Baton Rouge today has been pretty nice. There's supposed to be some rain here tomorrow. So it really feels like anywhere they were playing this series, we would have been fighting the raindrops. Richard, LSU has had to move a game in all but 4 series this year due to weather. So they're quite accustomed to this. Okay, so let's actually start there then. No rain yet. Is it more likely you think they play 2 Saturday, or do they just push the start time to this one back?
So from what I understand, and obviously I'm not a meteorologist,
right.
I'm talking about baseball instead of looking at Doppler radar, I don't think they're going to be able to get a game in tonight.
Oof.
The forecast later on this afternoon and then into this evening, it's like 100% chance of rain. How heavy that is, I don't know. We had some thunderstorms here yesterday, so I think those cells and that whatever system that is probably going to stick around throughout the rest of this evening. So I imagine a doubleheader, at least a doubleheader on Saturday, seems more likely than one game this evening. It's interesting you brought up LSU having a game moved. A&M's had to do that a couple of times too, albeit both of them on the road at Knoxville and then in Fayetteville. So A&M's also accustomed to the doubleheader situation, but I know at least in my selfish opinion, I'd much rather get a game in this evening instead of having to watch 18 innings tomorrow.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. Last thing on the weather, I promise we'll get into the baseball because I'm much more interested in that as well. Is there like kind of a template they followed to where you could guesstimate when we might have a decision on the game? Because I could tell you, Jay Johnson will take it up to the 11th hour. I mean, they've played until 1 o'clock in the morning 3 times already this season. So is there a kind of a way A&M likes to handle that?
So I don't know about this current staff. Obviously, it's the first year of Mike Early's tenure in Texas A&M, so I don't know how he likes to handle weather, stuff like that. Obviously, I think we'd like to have an answer sooner rather than later, especially with pitching is concerned before you got to get guys, whether it be Kate Anderson or Ryan Prager, whoever the starter is. You know, I know those guys are super process and routine-oriented as pitchers can be, so I'm sure they'll want to make a decision before those guys start getting going. Everything I've heard this morning and into this afternoon is they're going to wait as long as they possibly can to make a decision. So I imagine I'll probably leave the apartment here in a couple hours, head to the ballpark, and then hear about 5:30 that we're not going to play this evening. But that's par for the course. My being inconvenienced is a small price to pay.
Right. Getting 27 innings in is what they're looking for. Okay, so to the 27 innings, to the baseball. Texas A&M, I mean, I think everyone has really kind of taken notice of the season and the trials and tribulations that they've gone through, kind of the roller coaster effect. They were on fire heading into Austin. Texas is a good team. I mean, look, I know what happened last night in Fayetteville. That's a really good team. LSU went to Austin, got beat in the series. Man, I don't know about you, though, Richard. I was looking at that going, Texas A&M is the team that nobody wants to play now. They've got legitimate revenge. They're heading to Austin. Texas is ripe for the picking here this weekend. What changed for A&M in that series as opposed to the previous 3?
So, I mean, we always talk about metrics and analytics in baseball nowadays, but it really does still boil down to pitching, hitting, and timely defense. And at different points in all 3 of those games in Austin last weekend, either the pitching let them down. We think about the 6th inning of the Sunday game where A&M looked like they were going to be able to salvage that finale. They walk the bases loaded and then give up a 2-run single. Texas takes a 5-4 lead. That let them down. And then on Saturday, the winning run actually scored on an error on what should have been a caught stealing at third base. I believe it was Will Gasparino got a terrible lead trying to jump from second to third. A&M's got him dead to rights, and the throw's on the wrong side of the base. Then it trickles away from the third baseman. He scores on the air. So there's your pitching and defense things hampering the Aggies. Last weekend, they were 4 for 30 with men in scoring position in the entire weekend. All 4 of those base hits came in the Sunday finale, 2 of them in the first inning. They obviously didn't score enough runs. They lost a 2-1 game, a 3-2 game, and then the 6-5 game. So A&M's still playing at a high level. I think they played last weekend really well. They just got edged out each and every time. Texas made one more play, one more pitch, whatever it may be, to beat the Ags all 3 nights. But A&M's still playing good baseball. I don't think they are I don't know if they're regressing or if they're overwhelmed or emotionally down after what was an emotionally infused weekend in Austin. But they obviously need to understand, given what's gone on the rest of the season, that they can't let that linger over into this weekend, because if the goal is still to make the postseason, taking 1, if not 2, from a very good LSU team this weekend is key.
Obviously, we know about the lineup over there in Aggie Land. And, of course, Mike Early was the hitting coach last season and has stepped into the head coaching role here. And the lineup is extremely talented. I mean, even losing Gavin Grahovac, Caden Sorrell stepped in from injuries, hitting .377 in the 19 games that he's played. I mean, the guy's insane. But one thing that has been noticeable is an up-and-down year for Jace Laviolette, who was projected the first overall pick coming into this season. What's kind of hampered him this year?
So he's coming off a bad 4-game stretch. He went 0 for 6 on Tuesday night against Lamar. But in talking to him on Thursday at our weekly media availability, Jay seems to be the same happy-go-lucky guy we've known him to be for the entirety of his career in Aggieland. He seems undaunted and unfazed by the recent struggles. He's got 1 hit in his last 4 games. So that's obviously not a good year. But if you look at, or not a good stretch at least right now, but, the old adage in baseball goes he's due, and the longer he goes through it, the closer it means he is going to be to the next big swing. And it wasn't too long ago that he looked like the best player in all of college baseball during A&M's series victory in Fayetteville. That was just 2 weeks ago. So it's obviously still there. And then if you look at the numbers, or at least the numbers heading into last weekend in Austin, he's actually having statistically a better year than his first 2 years. He was hitting above 300. He's got 15 home runs on the year. Obviously, he's the only Aggie to ever reach the 20-homer plateau in back-to-back seasons. But the numbers are still a little bit down from what you might expect from the number 1 overall pick or the potential number 1 overall pick. I think a lot of that has to do with who he's got hitting in front of him and behind him. You mentioned Gavin Grahovic's out for the year. We only got to see him for 6 games before he had to shut it down to have shoulder surgery. And then they lost the highest drafted position player in Texas A&M history, Braden Montgomery, who I don't know if you remember, but he kind of lit the world on fire from the moment he set foot on campus to the moment the Red Sox took him 12th overall. So there's some protection issues around Jace Laviolette in the lineup, but Wyatt Hensler's still been really, really good. He usually hits right behind Jace. He's a right-handed hitting third baseman. And then you mentioned it, the infusion of Caden Sorrell into this lineup should help take some of that pressure off Jace to produce. He's been fantastic since he's come back from that hamstring issue. So Jace has been good. He hasn't been good the last 4 games, but that's just one more day closer to having a breakout.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Caden Sorrell hit the first pitch he saw this year over the fence?
I don't know if it was the first pitch, but it was definitely his first at bat.
It was his first at bat. Okay.
It was definitely, and it was in the air forever. A stewardess could have flown on it, kind of thing. But yeah, he's been hot. 9 homers in 19 games is just a ridiculous tear he's on.
It was very much a remember me type moment when he stepped back into the box for the first time. Okay, so that's kind of the guys that headline the lineup. Is there any hole in Texas A&M's lineup this year?
At times, I don't think even in winning series at Tennessee and at Arkansas, and then obviously sweeping South Carolina, I don't know if the entire lineup's been clicking all at one time. Right, Bear Harrison was looking like one of the best catchers in the conference on his way to all SEC honors. He was leading the league in OPS for a little bit when they went up to Knoxville and came back from Knoxville. He's kind of come back down to earth. And then, before Sorrell came back, it was kind of like a merry-go-round and left trying to find something to stick. they've now got three really good outfielders in Lavalette, Sorrell, and then the true freshman Terrence Keel II, who's not going to wow you with the power factor, but the contact and the speed is definitely something to take note of. They've started to get a lot more production from Ben Royo, the second baseman. He had 8 RBIs against Lamar on Tuesday night. I know it was Lamar, but he's got base hits and I believe 7 straight, something like that. And then Blake Benderup, a local kid in his second season with the Ags, playing first base, real big guy. He's got a hit in 9 straight, and I believe it might be 8 straight and 12 of his last 13. So they're starting to get production up and down the lineup. It's one of those things where if Jace Lavalette turns it on or if Wyatt Hensler gets it to click for an entire weekend, the offense could be just as potent as we saw during that doubleheader up in Knoxville at the beginning of April.
Talking with Richard Zane, Texas Ags. Of course, you can find his stuff there. You can follow him on Twitter, X, at RichardZane32. Let's flip it over to the pitching, and we'll start with Friday night or game 1 in this situation with the weather. And Ryan Prager, I mean, the tear he went on in Omaha, he had a great season in general in 2024. But in Omaha specifically, and now, I mean, I look up, and, I mean, the numbers tell the story themselves. But as someone who's watched every start, what's really given Prager issues this year?
Well, I don't know if the book's out on him or not, right? Because you think about what you mentioned, the Omaha start. He went he took a no-hitter into the 7th inning against Kentucky. That's the best I've ever seen him look. But he's also really matched aces in the league last year. Right? I think about the game A&M beat Arkansas 1-0 in 11 innings. Prager actually outpitched Hagen Smith, which is, I know, blasphemous to say out loud considering how great Hagen Smith was that night. But it's true. He went 7 innings to Smith's 6 innings. Prager's numbers, at least the metrics, the velocity's been down a little bit. But I don't know if that's really his struggles or really highlights the struggle. I think he's been a little bit more in the middle of the plate than we've seen him be over his tenure in Aggieland, his career in Aggieland. But what you're going to get out of Ryan Prager each and every night, whether he's on his stuff like he was that night in Omaha or if he has to compete like he has through a lot of this SEC schedule, he is going to give it his all. He is going to eat some innings. He's going to give his guys a chance. I really thought that last weekend against Texas was more towards the mean from what we've seen of Ryan Prager in his career. He went 5 2/3. Obviously, he lost that game, but he only gave up 1 run. And, you know, that kind of stuff happens. That's baseball. Sometimes your sometimes your offense doesn't get you the run support you need. But he's certainly capable of turning it on. It's just we haven't seen it too often against Southeastern Conference competition this weekend. But I still believe that whether it be this weekend or next weekend against Missouri or perhaps the regular season finale in Athens 2 weeks from now, that Ryan Prager is going to give you one of those vintage Ryan Prager starts. And if he can just get a couple of runs of support, the Aggies should be able to win that game because he is their ace and they've got to hang their hat on him. And he's got to be that guy as A&M tries to make a push for the postseason and then into the postseason.
Let's move to the bullpen here. I got a couple more for you, Rich, and your time is very much appreciated. I know Weston's been dealing with a little bit of an illness, but I saw that Mike Early said they expect him to pitch this weekend. But if he's not 100%, I mean, who are the other arms to keep an eye on in that Aggie bullpen?
So they've got a couple of left-handers down there. Both of them are named Caden, so you can try and stay with me. Caden McCoy is a true freshman from up in Indiana. He's actually battling through a meniscus injury, but he looked fine in Austin last weekend. He pitched again, I believe it was Tuesday against Lamar. They describe him as a dog. Like the metrics and the numbers and stuff aren't super, eye-popping or eye-catching, but he finds a way to get out, and he's pitching well beyond his years. Like, he doesn't look like a true freshman whatsoever. And then Caden Wilson, is the other one. He's a sophomore left-hander. He's got the higher velocity fastball. He's really turned it on. He was really good against Arkansas, shutting down that rubber match with the Hogs, and then he pitched well twice against Texas last weekend. So those are the two guys behind Moss that I really have my eye on. For A&M to succeed this weekend, and I understand what LSU's offense looks like, they're going to need a right-hander beyond Moss to contribute, whether that's Luke Jackson, who was brilliant in a longer relief appearance against Arkansas, or it's a guy like Brad Rudis, who's been around for a long time, or a guy like Clayton Freshcorn, who's got really nice metrics, just hasn't been able to put it together consistently this year. A&M's going to need some key contributions from right-handers like that.
He is Richard Zane. Get his stuff at TexAgs.com. Follow him on Twitter X at RichardZane32. Man, we appreciate the time and the insight. Thank you. Dodge the raindrops and enjoy the baseball this weekend.
Of course, guys. Thanks so much. I just want to say I'm super excited to watch Cade Anderson pitch this evening.
Man.
I know I was looking really forward to it last time LSU was here because they had that guy Paul Skeens on the mound on Friday night. So everything I've heard about Cade Anderson, I remember watching that complete game shutout against Oklahoma a few weeks ago. Really, really excited to see some good pitching in Aggie Land, whenever that may be. Hopefully it's this season.
You're going to see some great left-handed pitching throughout the weekend, and Cade Anderson will absolutely contribute. I mean, he's been awesome so far. Really taken a great jump from his freshman year to his sophomore season.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Back here, Hunt Palmer Show on a Friday. We're closing out the week for you here on the Hunt Palmer Show, presented by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Let's talk some LSU football. So Bill Connolly over at ESPN, he's at it again with his computer. Of course, Bill Connolly, father of the S&P Plus, and he puts out a lot of different pieces with analytics and whatnot. And look, I'll spare you a lot of the numbers that went into this piece. But ultimately, what he was looking at is something that he calls the luck index for 2025. And he uses it to try and predict turnarounds from one year to the next in college football. And it really focuses in on a couple three key aspects in general: turnover luck, close games luck, injuries, and general shuffling. LSU, while as much as many around here might think they need to turn it around, LSU's not really into a full turnaround from 24 to 25. You won 9 games. Did you want to lose 4? Of course not. But even though LSU didn't factor into like turnaround candidate out of this piece of Connolly, they were mentioned quite often. And what I really want to look at is, was it bad luck that cost LSU games a year ago? Or were they just not good enough in certain spots of the game? Was it decision-making? Was it poor execution? Things of that nature. Or did the ball just really not bounce LSU's way in a couple key moments in games that got away from them? Is it better to be lucky or good? Because look, we talk about it all the time. How often have you heard this phrase? Well, if a team's going to make a deep run or if a team's going to win a championship, they got to win one they're not supposed to win. It's a cliche, but it's also true. You can go back to any championship team or any team that made a good run. They got some good fortune along the way. And when I really looked at this piece from Bill Connolly, and I went back and kind of dove back into some of the key games in LSU season, they won some, they lost some. But it was really hard for me to figure out if luck had anything to do with it. LSU, based off of Bill Connolly's metrics and his, computer and the science he uses to analyze college football, LSU had bad turnover luck a year ago. They did. In fact, turnover luck is comprised of expected turnover margin, your actual turnover margin, and the difference between them. LSU ranked 117th. Again, we'll leave the numbers kind of there. Their difference was negative or minus 5.5 turnovers. So by the metric, they had bad turnover luck. But did they really? I can't really go back and think off the top of my head of the turnovers that LSU committed last year that I looked at it and went, man, that was a bad break. The ball was tipped up into the air and it was intercepted. Oh, man, the receiver was kind of trying to gain control of the ball, ended up taking enough steps, fumbled it away. Like, that'd be bad luck, right? In fact, LSU in games they won, and even some they didn't, had good turnover luck. The other thing where LSU was mentioned, and we'll dive back into that because I want to combine them, was the close games. LSU was 9-4 a season ago. They were 3-1 in one-score games. Connolly uses this thing called the second-order win total. Okay? What he does is after each game's over, he combines or compiles, I should say, the post-game win expectancy. That's a nice way to see how many games a team should have won. It works. You know, it's reliable for him. LSU, in win expectancy difference, so factoring in their close games, finished 19th. They were 9-4. Their second order win total was 7.9. So really, you were right where you needed to be. You won one more game in essence. You were plus 1.1. 3-1 in the close games. In those close games, you got good turnover luck. We'll start with South Carolina. South Carolina game, you had 2 interceptions taken off the board late in that game that would have iced it for the Gamecocks. The play Lenora Sellers got hurt on, and that was the biggest factor in that game in general, was Lenora Sellers getting injured. But the play he got hurt on was a sack fumble that you recovered and got a field goal out of. LSU was positive in the turnover margin in that game. You had phenomenal turnover luck in that game, where statistically, Bill Connolly's numbers would show you had bad turnover luck over the course of the season. But you won that one, and it was a one-score game. Against Ole Miss, it was an even turnover margin in that game. LSU had very good turnover luck. You forced the fumble right before the half. You get a field goal out of that. There was some bad there, too. Remember, Ole Miss misses a chip shot, 32-yard field goal. Garrett Nussmeier 2 plays later throws an interception, but your defense stopped them on that ensuing drive. And the turnover, the interception wasn't bad luck. He threw up a 50-50 ball, kind of overthrew his receiver, and it was picked off. It was poor execution. LSU lost the turnover margin in the bowl game and beat Baylor by multiple scores. LSU won the turnover margin in Gainesville and lost that game. And then there's, of course, the two that everyone's going to look at, A&M and Alabama. And we'll start with A&M because what the turnovers did for you in that game or worked against you in that game is you set A&M up with short fields. But again, it wasn't bad luck. It was bad decision and bad execution. Nussmeier threw the ball out of bounds instead of trying to force it. Pick, 26-yard field or whatever. Or 8-yard field on that one. The other one was like 26 yards. When he tries to throw across the sideline, when it gets an interception. You couldn't stop Marcel Reed in that ball game. Yeah, you set him up with short fields, and that's good. But that was your own doing. It wasn't a tipped pass or anything like that. Against Alabama, you were down 3 scores in the blink of an eye before you even started turning the football over. Alabama could have started every drive on their own one and still dominated you in that football game. You gave them really one short field on a turnover, and also you turned the ball over once in the red zone. That was the interception from Nuss when you were about to score. I rehash all of that to say LSU didn't have bad luck last year. LSU wasn't unlucky. LSU just wasn't good enough. And in fact, they were lucky, in my opinion, more often than not. Numbers in this analytical, experiment be damned. You tell me you aren't lucky in South Carolina to an extent, and against Ole Miss on your home field to an extent. The other one score game we didn't go through was USC. You had one turnover in the game as the last play of the game. It didn't really matter. You couldn't run the football in short yardage. That tells me, and there's an instance, sure, where it is better to be lucky than good. It wasn't LSU's problem last year. And that's why when you look at some of these metrics that he's using to project next year, they don't factor in for LSU.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
LSU-Texas A&M supposed to get underway at 6 p.m. on Friday. We'll see. Of course, we had Richard Zane with us earlier, covers the Aggies for Texags. Said it looks like it's going to be pretty hard to get the ball game in on Friday night, but the rest of the weekend in College Station looks great. They will play 27 innings, 3 games between these two teams. So when they do, what are we looking for? I told you on the first segment of the show, Texas A&M, they're going to play hard. They're going to be ready to play. It's all about which version of them shows up. And I told y'all, I think it would favor LSU more if it's the version of A&M that was slugging. Because I like LSU's pitching a lot in starting matchups with Anderson and Ianson, even against the hot A&M lineup, because good pitching beats good hitting. Pitchers' duels worry me a little bit with LSU. So, I mean, if you get Ryan Prager from a week ago, Ryan Prager from Omaha, that's going to be interesting. You know, Justin Lampkin's been awesome really for 3 years now at A&M. I mean, that'd be interesting. How LSU is able to set up their pitching, we'll wait and see. If they have an opportunity to polish off this series Friday, Saturday by using Callan and Evans, they're absolutely going to do that. And you approach Sunday how you do, and I think that's the right call. But digging deeper into this series, I'll give you something on offense. LSU, they have to continue what they had over the weekend against Tennessee. Not game three, over the weekend against Tennessee. LSU at 375 over the course of 3 games with runners in scoring position against the Vols. That's pretty good. You need to continue with that. Build on that. And you did, for what it's worth, against Southeastern, a good Southeastern club in the midweek. 2-out RBI have been a hallmark of this LSU team. You had 10 of them over the weekend, course of 3 games against Tennessee. LSU was 50% against the Vols, getting the runner home from third base with less than 2 outs. Something they had been awesome at all year. Those hallmarks, those 3, really returned. Can you build on that and find the consistency now? You showed it still in there. Now it's about finding the consistency. You're going to see a lot of left-handed pitching from Texas A&M. All 3 starters. Prager, Lampkin, Patton. All 3 of them lefties. Richard Zane was here earlier. You heard him talk about both Cadens in the bullpen. Wilson and McCoy. Wilson more mid-90s. Saw an awesome fastball from the left side. They're going to throw a lot of lefties at you all weekend. Something that A&M's been doing for a while. Even back to when Rob Childress was there. With that being said, I think Ethan Fry could be huge for LSU this weekend. I think he needs to be. The splits are what they are with Fry. I think he has improved against right-handed pitching this season from where he was last season, but he is still far and away better against left-handed pitching than he is against righties. And you've seen them kind of start that platoon. With all the lefties and including 3 lefty starters, you could see 3 starts from Ethan Fry this weekend in College Station, and he needs to be big for LSU. The numbers overall in the year are still very good. But in the SEC, it's obviously taken a dip. 343 overall in the season for Fry. In conference play, 220. It's going to be favorable matchups for him facing all these lefties. He needs to be big for you. Jared Jones needs to find the consistency. Jared hit 333 against Tennessee. It was a really, really great weekend. Great to see him kind of break out of that. Went yard again on Tuesday. Consistency. I'm fired up to see Luis Hernandez try to build off what he did on Sunday. And then, man, if you can get Monster Milam going this weekend, that would be huge, because once he breaks out of it again, that is going to be a catalyst for this offense that they sorely, sorely need heading down the stretch. LSU's offense, something they've shown all year outside of 2 weeks, is when some of their top guys aren't going, everyone else could pick up the slack. I know on Moose of the Box, I've talked extensively about the bottom of the order. You saw that against Tennessee in certain moments. When you get Monster Mile and back going, and you will, that's going to be a huge catalyst, and there could be no better time than doing that here this weekend on the road. Just like I think Ethan Fry's big for you against left-handed pitching on the offensive side, I think LSU's left-handed pitching is going to be huge in this series as well. Whether it's Cade Anderson, whether it's Connor Ware, Cooper Williams, DJ Primo, whenever those guys in the bullpen number is called, they have to go out and execute, and there's going to be spots for that. Because A&M, while their lineup's not as left-handed heavy as it has been in the past, their best hitters, some of their best hitters are left-handed. Jace Laviolette, Caden Kent, Caden Sorrell. There's going to be big moments in this series where you go to your bullpen for a lefty to win a matchup, and those guys, Ware, Primo, Williams, they have to be up to the task. They have to execute and knock it out. That's going to be big, kind of game within the game, maybe a little bit here. And look, if y'all listen to Moose of the Bucks, you know I'm not the biggest left-on-left guy. I don't put all that much stock into it. But I also don't think it's completely worthless. And I think this is a weekend where that really could favor LSU offensively. And if your guys execute on the mound, it could favor you there too. So who wins the series? Well, let's kind of break this down a little bit. A&M's got the home field advantage. That's a check mark in their favor. I sat in this chair a week ago and told y'all that I will never pick someone to win a series or a game solely based off of home field. There are too many other factors. Does it matter? Of course. Of course. And that's a check mark in A&M's favor. I would give LSU a check mark in pitching because you've been more consistent in your rotation. And if you have a lead and you go to Cowan or Evans, I feel great about that. If you have a chance to save Evans and you have him going on a Sunday for you, I feel great about that. Offense, you could look at it and say more of a push. I'll actually give a slight nudge to A&M because they're at home. It's their ballpark. It's in front of their fans. Momentum can get going, and it's a really good offensive lineup. But with LSU having the pitching advantage, good pitching beats good hitting. You could say it's a cliche. I tell you it's just baseball because it shows itself more often than not. And then in coaching, I'm taking Jay Johnson. Michael Early is not only a first-year head coach, he's a first-time head coach, and you have seen him have to navigate those waters early in the season and even throughout a little bit as well. There's a lot more on that guy's plate, and he's still navigating those waters. Jay Johnson has won a national championship. He has taken multiple teams to Omaha, and this year, when he has gone to press a button, it has normally worked. And a lot of the time, that's been pitch hitting late in games, piecing things together out of your bullpen. The buttons Jay has pushed this year have worked. So I would absolutely give that advantage to LSU based off of experience and what you've seen from the road, them being able to platoon and rotate guys and it just seemingly working every time. You add all that up, I like LSU to win the series 2 out of 3. And it would be a massive one for you. It's a quad one opportunity with A&M being a top 40 RPI team and you doing it on the road. It would give you some margin for error again back as you face your toughest remaining series at home and then go to South Carolina. It would get you to 16 wins in the league. And I think I don't know if I want to say I think you're better than A&M, but I think you've definitely been more consistent and you definitely played better than them over the course of the season. Anything can happen. It's baseball. But I like the Tigers to go and get this one done. For all the reasons stated there. And man, look, when you face Ryan Prager, hit him. Because everybody has. SEC teams are hitting, let me make sure I have it right, 321 off of Ryan Prager. You heard Richard Zane earlier. He's been in the middle of the plate. LSU's been great at hitting mistakes. Hit mistakes. You win behind Cade Anderson and defeat Prager, you're in the same spot you were a week ago. You got 2 games to win 1 more. It's a big series for LSU because it could lighten things up a little bit for you in your final 2 weekends. I like the Tigers 2 out of 3. I don't have a full recap for you, obviously, on Monday. I will have full coverage for you on Moose at the Box all throughout the weekend. Please get subscribed.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Wrapping up the week on the Hunt Palmer Show. We'll do it with some Take It or Leave It. Hit it, Taylor.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
All right, so on Sunday night, Texas freshman offensive lineman Nick Brooks was arrested after going 47 in a 30-mile-an-hour zone, but he had just left the bar, keep in mind only 18 years old, told the cops, was very honest with them, said, I'm going to a 21 and up place that makes special exceptions for Texas football players. He also said that he just left the bar. He's on his way to meet Texas recruits at a strip club, and also told them that he was currently feeling the effects of a marijuana vape pen.
What?
So he has been arrested for DWI.
What?
My question is Nick Brooks transferring to Georgia? Take it or leave it.
First of all, we're going to leave the poor decisions the child made at the bar and then getting behind the wheel of a vehicle.
I appreciate the honesty, though.
Now, he would fit in at Georgia.
That was my first thought, man. Is this guy going to Georgia?
He kind of would fit in there.
Kirby's licking his chops right now.
Transfer portal. Hit it up. Jeez. What a story. All right, what else you got?
All right, the last one. The Morehead City Marlins
Take it.
on June 20. Take it? Okay, we're taking it. You've clearly
I'll
seen
take
it. They are rebranding as the Crystal Coast Booty Divers on June 20th. This is
Let's go.
This is inspired by Blackbeard's lost loot off the shores of Carteret County, where they are located. The Crystal Coast Booty Divers in June.
That is absolutely fantastic. They know exactly what they're doing. We're taking all of that. I love minor league baseball. They do whatever they want, promotions-wise, team name-wise. They just keep changing team names. I know this is temporary, but they keep changing team names to just make them more and more outlandish and ridiculous. I'm taking all of that. And plus, they're calling themselves the Booty Divers for a night. They could say it's about pirate treasure. We know what they're doing. They know
You didn't have to name it the Booty Divers.
No.
You could have named them the Treasure Hunters.
Exactly. But that wouldn't have been any fun,
Nope.
would it? Yes. Booty Divers. We're taking that 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. That's awesome. I hope they win that game by 30. So good. All right. That's going to wrap it up. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Enjoyed filling in again here just for a quick 2 hours. Hunt's back on Monday. Matt is coming up next here for AFR. He'll drive you home. And again, Hunt will be back on Monday for the Hunt Palmer Show. Be here for that.
The Hunt Palmer Show.